Much better, thank you. The voice is still gritty, but
Yes.
um, much better, thank you. Thanks for your concern and your prayers and
Yes,
those
most
of
definitely.
others. May introduce my as I normally do by saying good evening, loyal sons and daughters, all firm craftsmen of her faith, and do allow me, with apologies, to share with you off camera. Thank you so much. And Marcia,
Yes.
I was listening to you backstage for the longest while because I was ready to come on as you indicated. And I
Um,
heard you, you know, your expressions, your passionate expressions on what has been happening today on our National Heroes Day. And I'm asking, what do you expect? I did not intend to start there. May I ask them to take that down for a minute or two
yes, I'm
and
going to start too
just
because I took up your time, but I'm giving it back to you. So I'm gonna have you start of it's 7:56. So you're officially gonna start at 8. So you have the
I
4 minutes.
thank you. So
Okay.
that 4 minutes would allow me, or in less time, to share this. The National Heroes Day in Barbados was first celebrated on the 28th of April,
Mm,
1998, the centenary of the birth of national hero Grant Lee Adams after the passing of the Order of National Heroes Act 1998. It was an initiative begun by the Barbados Labour Party, which is led by this Prime Minister. And I wondered if in all of her partying that she paused to acknowledge our national heroes chosen by them. And these are Buster, Sarah Ann Gill, and if she hasn't, we will do it, Marcia. Buster, Sarah Ann Gill, Samuel Jackman Prescott, Dr. Charles Duncan O'Neill, Clement Osborne Payne, Sir Grantley Herbert Adams, the Right Honorable Errol Walton Barrow, Sir Hugh Worrell Springer. And we also have our our own, there are 11 of them, Sir, Sir Garfield St. Auburn Sobers, Sir Frank Walcott, and did she mention Rihanna? Because hot and sweaty, much to the surprise and the angst of the Barbadian public, um, we had Rihanna sprung on us. These are our national heroes, and out of curiosity, and I say thanks for their contribution. And while I was waiting, Marcia, I
mhm,
did a research on how is National Heroes Day celebrated.
mhm.
And they said my various quick research shows that National Heroes Day is celebrated with a variety of activities, including flag raising ceremonies. We know what was being raised on the highway up there, wreath laying at monuments, public events like concerts and festivals. Now, this concert and festival that we are seeing on the other end of the island does not represent the culture or the national psyche or the national our representation of that embodies the Barbadian psyche and that represents the work and contribution of those heroes that have been chosen. Some celebrations include food stalls showcasing local cuisines and crafts, and some include fireworks. Some include, for example, in Zimbabwe, they have wreath laying at the monuments, a Heroes Day gala, and the Zimbabwe Defense Forces Day. And it goes on in in actually recognizing the heroes collectively and individually. But what we are hearing is another um, form of electioneering, which brings me to my presentation tonight,
Yes, because it's
which I
8:01. It's 8:01.
yes,
Go right
which I
ahead.
titled um, the M's, and I'm asking the listeners to add some more M's that come to mind, given the context of politics within Barbados. And the three M's I've chosen are machinations, movementations, and musical chairs. Machinations, movementations, and musical chairs. And if we look at machinations, the Cambridge Dictionary describes it as a plot or scheme, a
Mm-hmm.
plot or scheme, and the it is also defined as an act of scheming or crafty action or artful design intended to accomplish something. It is a complicated and secret plan, especially in obtaining or using power. It's a complicated and secret plan to get power or control or to gain an advantage.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's meant by machinations. Then we have movementations coined by our own Matt Fingal. And we know when he uses movementation, he brings his body into the movement. And it is usually the innuendo of something um that is sexual, something that has sexual connotation, something that's sensual, something that looks at kind of gyrating. And we looked at musical chairs, and we all have played musical chairs at some time. And we know that it doesn't always end well for those participating, because in the end, there is only one chair. And sometimes in trying to get that chair, you trip others, you pull the chair away. There are lots of movementations and schemes and plans to get into that one chair. And that is what we're seeing right now here. The movementations, the machinations to win this by election, and again to maintain and hold on to power, although you have a majority. And let us look quickly at by elections over the years. and how they occurred, and the trend that we would have seen emerging since 2018, unlike previous ones. So let's go very quickly. And I think Mr. Hines spoke in some to it. We had the last speaker last night who started talking about by elections in the past, and then Glenn Mr. Murray said that um, he would like to speak on it, but as you know, he would have had this prepared from last Friday.
Yes.
So let's go quickly. When we talk about by election, what does it mean? When does it occur? Now, I am assuming that there's still uh, the UK, the British parliamentary procedures that we're still following, and although we're a republic, and a UK parliamentary by-election happens when a seat in the House of Commons becomes vacant between general elections. In the United Kingdom, a parliamentary by-election occurs following a vacancy arising in the House of Commons, and they are often seen as a test of the rival, and sometimes they are sprung suddenly or with hints and then sprung suddenly. Now let's slide a little bit more. Parliamentary seats sometimes become vacant between elections due to death, resignation, or expulsion of
Mhm.
elected representatives from a party. These are the sources there. So let's quickly look from pre-independence. Scroll quickly for me. In 1990, 50, we had universal adult suffrage.
Mhm.
And out of that came the 1951 general election. Let's slide some more. And adult suffrage basically allowed any adult over 21 to vote. Prior to that, you had to have property and wealth, and only the privileged could vote. With adult suffrage under um, one of the national heroes, um, Sir Grantley Adams, adult suffrage came around. So there was an election in 1951. Let's go quickly. On the 29th of November, the 29th of November, 1954, 3 years after that first general election, a by-election was held in St. Lucie. Um, on the resignation of Sir John Eustace Theodore Branco, a
Yes.
BLP. He then became, I think, the Speaker of the House at one point. And he won the elections in 1951. And I'm not clear, I've been researching why there was the by election. And he was replaced by Sir James Cameron Tudor, who was also a BLP, note that, and who went on to be a founding member of the Democratic Labour Party in 1955. Um, on the 21st of May 1950, so um, Sir James Tudor won on a BLP ticket in a by-election, and then shifted over to start with Errol Barrow, the DLP, and there was Cameron, Sir Frederick Smith, and others. Then we had in 1958, Errol Barrow replaced St. John St. John, DLP, and Mr. Vaughan. And he ran as, prior to that, he was a member of the BLP under Grantley Adams. He was a candidate for St. George. He won St. George in the 1951 election, went to Parliament, and then lost the seat. When the by-election came up then in 1958, he shifted to St. John, won that seat, and held it until his death. Let's go on quickly. Other by-elections. Then we had in 1958, there were two by-elections. One in St. Joseph, one by Glenroy Strawn of BLP, when Sir Grantley Adams became Prime Minister of the short-lived Federation. So we see there that Sir Grantley Adams had a reason to resign and open up that space for another person. Then in St. John, the election occurred at the same time in St. John. That is when on the same day, that is when Errol Barrow won the seat in St. John and held on to it. Then in 1969, the 29th of May, there was a by-election in the city of Bridgetown after the death of the Barbados National Party member Louis Lynch. And it was the first election held after we became independent. Let's go quickly. I'm looking at my clock.
Yes, you have 10 minutes.
Yes. Then we had that election was won by the Prime Minister's father, Elliot Motley. Then in 1970, we had a by-election in St. Joseph. This is when, as my research throws up, when Sir Grantley Adams resigned through ill health. So it was sickness that prompted his resignation, and Lindsay Bolden won the seat. Then in 1976, we had two elections, one in the city of Bridgetown, where Elliot Motley resigned. I searched and I could not find reasons for his resignation, but there were other reasons I would have heard underground that I would not repeat. And out of that, he left the BLP, and it was Prime Minister Errol Barrow who gave him an overseas diplomatic post as Consul General to New York. And another time, or Glenn would talk about it, but you would have heard Caswell saying that the Prime Minister then, because of the current Prime Minister, doesn't say it often, but because of the kindness of Errol Barrow, who had mercy on her father and gave him that overseas post, she practically grew up under the DLP mentorship and mentoring, the same DLP that she seeks to destroy a bad mouth. Anyhow, let's move on. The same time, there was a by-election in St. Philip due to St. Philip North. When Neville Maxwell's seat became vacant, he was taken to court by Sir Henry Ford, the late Sir Henry Ford et al., for slander and libel. Do your research, folks. And he was bankrupt. So he fled the country or left the country, vacating that seat. So a civil case brought to him in the law courts brought the end to his political representation. He was the LP. Billy Miller won the Motley, replaced Motley, and so did in St. Philip for a short while. David Simmons took over that seat. Let's go now quickly again. I'm coming on really fast.
Yes,
Um,
5 minutes we have.
okay, I'm under pressure here. Then we had a by-election then when Sir Frederick Smith resigned again, retired after long service, come back down to the bottom as you were scrolling, and Sir Richard Haynes took over. Let's look at the next one. Then we had, oops, come down some more. No, up, go back up,
What date you want? Right there, right there,
right there.
right there.
Then we had 1984 when or there was a by election. I think it was the same Burton Hines who vacated that's in Peter Street, Chad Blackman's great grandfather. And for a short while, there were two by elections. Sybil Leacock won the first time by one vote. Owenatha took her to court, and they had a second by election, and he won that seat. Then we had a by election in St. Thomas after Tom Adams died. So there was death. Tom Adams died, and David Simmons won that seat. 1987, when the Prime Minister Eric Barrow died, a by election, David Thompson won that seat. Then we had St. Michael Northwest, when that was Weeks, Lawson Weeks, Clyde Maskell, he resigned too because of ill health, and Clyde Maskell won that seat. Then we had St. Lucy and St. Thomas under other circumstances when Sir David Simmons resigned to become Chief Justice of Barbados, and Senator Ford won that seat. Then after Thompson's death in 2011, there was a by-election. His wife was the people's choice and favorite. A St. Lucian marked that. A St. Lucian marked that. And she won the seat because the people preferred her and wanted her to carry on her husband's work. And now bringing us plump now into 2020, and I'm going to read it as I saw it here. We're in St. George North, the incumbent at that time, Glenn Clark, who represented the constituency for 26 years, was offered a post of Barbados High Commissioner to Canada to relinquish in exchange for bringing home the seat, relinquishing the seat to Tony Moore, and helping Tony Moore to win the constituency. And you will notice that I said she replaced, not win. All the others would have won. She replaced by what I call the 3 M's: machinations, movementations, and musical chairs. And I had a video where Glenn Clark said, as he was speaking to the constituents and Barbados at large at St. George Secondary School, where they were announcing Tony Moore's ascension, if I could call it that. He said, Mia asked me if I would do her this favor. You all could go and listen on YouTube. Do her this favor. Glenn, um, let Tony Moore, help Tony Moore resign, retire, whatever, so that Tony Moore could get the seat. And Glenn laughingly said, and when Mia asks you to do something, you can't refuse, something to that effect. And it seems as though the same is happening now in St. George North. And if you listen to Mr. Hickson's speech, there is a little rumbling and mumbling about, give way and give way. And I am going to continue to serve my country. So we are wondering if again musical chairs occurred, if there was that plotting, that scheming, and we have been hearing that the young gentleman give up um, a more visible, a more international platform at her bidding to come home and to be sent into the Senate, etc., and given ministries. And so indeed, we are seeing a manipulation, Marcia, a manipulation of democracy, and the people are being forced, or persons are being pulled out who probably never wanted to, or being pulled out prematurely. The people's choice, and they're being foisted with choices and persons handpicked by the prime minister to assume, to take over. And what does it say? What does it say to veterans in the system? And we have been hearing of persons. Look at John King. I am so disappointed with that young man from Church Village. He went to the polls on goodwill towards the people. The people showered him with goodwill, but he was really, what you call it, babysitting until the other person took over. And is that the norm? I am asking people, when you go to the polls under this administration, are you really voting for a bona fide representative, or are you voting for someone who will keep the chair, keep the seat until you are asked to relinquish it in favor of someone? And we were hearing rumors that that's what's been happening in St. Philip North. We've been hearing rumors that would have happened in the constituency that was earmarked for Ronnie Yearwood. We were hearing that has been, there's a few more constituencies. What will happen? Will they line up the guy in a row and tell him to kneel? You can't get back that seat. You hear what I'm saying? Line up the guy in a row and tell him kneel. You can't get back this seat. What about the city? Are we putting that gentleman down a lane and tell him run down the lane? Somebody else is taking over your seat. Well, the brown girl in a ring from the east hold on tenaciously and with dignity and morality and say, look, I am holding on to the very end because the people of St. Philip North have sent me here, and not to resign prematurely so that somebody else can come on the block. And I am hearing more persons in the that BLP um, 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 con- conclave, or whatever you call it, grouping, that they are nervous because they do. I remember that Pressy chased them out of St. Michael East, chased the homeless guy from St. Michael East soon after the 2018 elections. Are we hearing we hearing so many rumors, and I am asking, where, if you look at the historical overview that I give, these persons resigned because of ill health, or because of duty calling elsewhere, which would be uh, Sir David Simmons, or so in the early days, Gradley Adams, um, who took up the position of the first prime minister, premier of the federation. And it
Yes.
goes, but this willy-nilly shifting and pushing here and plopping heavyweights on people, it is not transparent, and it is deceiving the electorate to go
Yes.
out there and vote, and you in goodwill vote for someone, then to hear it is short-lived, someone else is coming. What about the marshal? What about the marshal? And I'm talking the female marshal. What's happening there? I'm hearing that there's been a falling out, and that person, that female marshal, is being sidelined.
Mhm.
So it's it that you are maneuvering again, maneuvering another M. Ma'am, M is maneuvering, um, having machinations and movementations and musical chairs to satisfy her own. And machinations is a plot and a scheme to maintain and control power.
Yes.
And these are the things that we have to look at, Marcia. Thanks
Yes.
for obliging me on this
Yes.
one.